Again, there are benefits of artificial intelligence, but the impact on the creators and the creative community, you can't deny it. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Video is harder to produce with a an AI created being. Audio is so much more deceptive and believable.
Welcome to the AI Grapple podcast. My name is Kate Vandervoort, founder and CEO of Social Mediology and the AI Success Lab. Today's guest is Aaron Ryan, best-selling author, voice actor for some of the biggest brands in the world, and a creative entrepreneur who spent decades telling stories. But right now, both of his industries, writing and voiceover, are being massively disrupted by AI. From synthetic voices replacing voice actors to AI-generated books flooding the market, Aaron has a front row seat to the changes that are shaking up creative work. In this conversation, he does not hold back, sharing the harsh realities, ethical dilemmas, and what it really means for creatives trying to make a living in the age of AI. Is there still a future for human creators? Can AI and artistry coexist? Let's dive in. Aaron, welcome. It is great to have you here today.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, I would love to get started with you just giving us a bit of background about who you are and how you've come to where you are in your life right now before we dive into some of the topics we're going to grapple with today.
Yeah. Well, a long time ago, actually, I'm basically where I'm at right now, just starting from the end and working my way backwards, is I am a parallel storyteller. I serve, I'm not in the military. I am a voiceover artist by trade. I am an author by trade. Both of those are on parallel tracks of storytelling. One is basically telling stories of other people, and then one is telling my own stories. I very much prefer this one over here. But man, I really enjoy both of them. Both are being directly impacted by AI because they are both creative industries. And it's just, it's a hard place to be. But I think I've tried everything creative known to man except for pole dancing. I have a varied history of all kinds of creative pursuits that are mostly artistic in nature, almost all of them, and it's gone back to my childhood. So I started creating from a very young age. I was created to create, is what I like to say, and I have a deep fundamental need to create. So that's really, there are markers all through my life that's proven that true. I have to create.
Oh, amazing. Love connecting with another creator. So you just touched on there, Aaron, that AI is revolutionizing creative industries. So from your writing and your voice acting, as an author and voice actor, what are you feeling around this AI disruption? Is it an opportunity? Is it a threat? Is it both? What are you seeing in your creative space at the moment?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think it's definitely a disruption with a capital D. It's been, so to give you a little background, as a voiceover artist, we started seeing, it's a very tangible threat, and it's been that way for a long time as a voiceover artist. As someone who puts recordings out there into the ether, and my voice is used in commercials and radios and e-learning and IVR phone trees and voice of God announcers and explainer videos, it's all over the place. And so it's easily harvestable if you know where to look and you know what you're looking for. And that's all that AI is. It's being trained from what already exists largely. And it's been, harvesting and creating these generative models. It's been a threat on the voiceover radar for many, many years. The more real and tangible and authentic sounding voices like, I can't say it because I'm going to activate her, but voices like Alexa and Siri and Google Voice, and see, I activated my iPad over here. They're just getting better and
Phone
better.
just went off.
See, they're getting better and better, particularly Alexa. I'm just going to say it that way. Oh, good. I didn't activate her. Particularly hers, I think, is just getting so much better and better every day. And it's a threat to the voiceover sphere because our voices can easily be replaced. I know of colleagues whose voices have been harvested for text to speech applications and software, without their consent. And we have jobs that are posted on marketplaces that we audition through that clearly are for TTS models or AI models. And we can opt in or opt out. It's our choice, but some of them pay a pretty dollar. And so your uninformed, spring chicken voiceover artist who sees this big dollar figure and is starry-eyed doesn't really care about the ethics or the dilemma of it. And so we've seen the rate scale continue to drop because people are getting voiceovers on the cheap. As an author, it's not quite as tangibly felt, although people can clearly make stories so much more easily just by giving ChatGPT a few prompts, but it is affecting that industry too.
And it's interesting, I hadn't thought about that aspect, that they're paying a pretty dollar, but you're being paid to do yourself out of a job. Because once they've
Yeah.
cloned your voice, that's it. They don't need you anymore.
Yes, there's kind of a but and clause to that because I'm part of a voiceover marketplace. I'll keep them, they whom we do not name for their own protection, but it's not like there's, ramifications or blowback they'd experience. But they've started to embrace AI, and I think it makes absolute sense. If you can't defeat something or if it looks like it's going to revolutionize everything, well, you probably are wise to embrace it. I'm not there yet. And I think you do have the ability, I know you do have the ability to sign up through, I believe it's Respeecher. There's other, outfits like Speechalo and Speech Ocean. And you can basically upload samples of what you've recorded. You can license your voice. So what that means is people can buy my voice, make their own recordings, and I will get paid. Do I like that? Yes and no. It means less work and it means I've got a tangible licensable product, but there needs to be regulation on it. There needs to be oversight so I know exactly what my voice is being loaned to. If I'm a Republican, I don't want you putting it for Democrats opponents. If I'm a Democrat, I don't want you to use my voice for Republican opponents. If it's endorsing, lasciviousness or profanity or anything out there where you just go, I don't want my voice associated with that. You have to be able to put up some guardrails. And right now they're not there. The legislation is not there.
So is that sounds like a potential solution to the challenges that are being faced, the licensing. Are there other creative ways that you have been thinking of about how creators can be honoured for their work? Because I know the copyright and how these models are trained is such a big issue. And as you say,
Yeah.
the legislation has not caught up to protect people properly. What are your thoughts on how to best do that to honour creators' work whilst also being able to bring AI into the world, which it's already here?
Yeah. It's such a hard thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of Aliens. I wrote an Aliens saga. I like the canon of the original Alien story, and I like the narratives and everything. But Ian Holm, his likeness, spoiler, but Alien Romulus has been out there long enough now. But Ian Holm is being used without his consent because he is no longer alive to consent. His likeness is being used on an android in Alien Romulus. And it's a really cringeworthy deepfake, number one. His voice, simulated voice is used, and that's also cringeworthy. I don't think there is a creative solution for things like that. I've heard Michael Jackson songs that are posthumous, and they're not something he recorded, prior to his death. They are created using simulated models of his voice, and he can't consent to that either. So you have a rainbow bridge that no one can cross in order to gain consent from those who have gone before that'll never be able to be solved. The only thing you can do is while you're alive, state what you'd like to have done. And James Earl Jones has done something similar to that, licensing his voice for future Darth Vader recordings. It's a crazy ethical dilemma of do you really want to do that? Now, my own creative pivot was I've been an author, I've been a singer, I've been a poet, I've been a voiceover artist, lots of creative pursuits, as I mentioned. My pivot was because voiceovers, the creative industry of voiceovers is so under attack. I pivoted back to authoring. And so that is my adapt and overcome strategy. Should this whole industry crumble, there's my studio behind me. Should this crumble and should it no longer pay our mortgage, and it's headed that way, I'm not kidding. We've seen our income drop. We've seen the quality and quantity of voiceover jobs drop. I'm just trying to look to the future and still create. But man, it's hard. I just don't have a real tangible answer to us who are here now
And
and what we
just on
do.
that, and it's a tough question, but do you think synthetic voices will ever fully replace human voiceover artists or voice actors? Is that a potential outcome of all this?
It's not a potential, it's a certainty, and it's happening now. It is absolutely happening now. So they are believable enough. And, there are some agencies out there that have really bad models, and they've created really poor voices that you can see through. I mean, you can hear through, actually, is probably the more appropriate expression. But it is happening now. I mean, I am being replaced by these clients I've worked with forever who've decided to snip the budget and cut corners, and so they're no longer paying an outstanding humbly spoken voiceover artist who's I'm the voice of United Healthcare, for example, right now, and that's been a boon of great business for us. God forbid that should ever be replaced. But e-learning, online videos, recordings that don't require a lot of emotion, nuance, things that don't need to be directed, those are being replaced. And so the bottom edge of voiceovers is being eaten away at right now, but it's rising. So it's actually happening right now. I don't know how to stem that tide other than just continuing to petition to the people who provide these voice over marketplaces to not incorporate AI, and to petition the existing and new clients to continue to pay a fair market wage, because that has really eroded under the weight of AI. And you said it earlier, boy, 2023 was where everything really kind of exploded with Chat GPT and OpenAI and Midjourney and all of those things. They're all growing to the massively. I don't fear Skynet yet, but the Terminators are out there, man. They can't be bargained with. They can't be reasoned with. They don't feel pity or remorse or fear, and they absolutely will not stop ever until you're out of a job. That's my belief.
Yeah, I was going to save the Skynet conversation for later. But I think, there's so many different versions of that story of how things, so just to go from voiceover artists to the whole of humanity, we'll stretch it out. There's so many ways that story could unfold. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Creator, which is, they've got AI. Have you seen that movie?
I've not. Who's in it?
Don't ask me who's in a movie. I don't
I'm,
know.
I'm going to Google it for later.
Google it for later. It's an interesting storyline because the AI is in the body of a child, and AI and humanity are trying to exist. And the way that the AI is portrayed at the end of the movie, just spoiler alert, is to be more of an altruistic, benevolent being, whereas humans have been fighting with it where there was really nothing to fight over. So there's kind of that end of the story. And then we have the full Terminator, Skynet. I was interviewing someone the other day who was talking about it's probably not going to be either of those things. But if one domino goes, the dominoes can go so fast when there's no safety guardrails, and that it'll probably be an accidental trip of something or an unintended consequence potentially that just we hadn't thought of that will set off a chain of events that is beyond our control. But it's certainly, I think most people are not wanting to have that conversation because it's just too frightening around what that means for humanity. Do you bring that storyline into your books?
My books have not touched upon AI yet. Only to say that at the beginning of all of my books there is a small disclaimer, and it's essentially they're all called Note on AI. And in those forewords of each book, I basically make no bones about the fact that I'm not a supporter of AI in terms of creative pursuits. I will never and have never employed the use of AI in any of my works. I just happen to type and create really fast. And I've been able to do that for years. So, I mean, I've actually been suspected of that because of how fast I pushed out the Dissonance saga in 2024. I absolutely get it, but I'm staunchly opposed to it because the fact that it is simply annihilating our livelihood. It is, and it's just sad. So I'm not going to incorporate it. I don't know that I would write a novel on it. There are others that are more entrenched in the AI ecosystem or in technology who have far more knowledge than I do. And if they're going to fictionalize it, I think theirs would be more hard fiction, more believable because of the fact that they are just it's so much more on their radar. I can explain to anybody until the cows come home what it has done to my career, for sure. But to create a fictional account would be hard. Um, yeah, I
Podcast
mean,
interview that dropped this week was with Dr. Roger Smith, who is at the forefront of robotics and surgery and
yeah,
AI, and he's written medical thrillers, including AI.
I think that's great. And this is where I want to draw the line a little bit. Now, AI is not it's not the devil. Just like, money, the people misquote that scripture all the time. Money is the love of money is the root of all evil. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It's not the root of all evil. And so people take AI and they call it, that's Satan. It's not. It is a tool that can be abused. And it's being abused as we speak. And it's being used, unfortunately, with abusive ramifications. So AI in and of itself is not evil. I actually have seen plenty of reels on, say, Instagram or Facebook reels where people are actually benefiting from, amputees are benefiting from new technology created to help them walk. And that's done via AI. So more power to you, medical field and creator of that type of technology. There's a difference, though. You've created that technology to help someone function. When you create technology that prevents someone from creating, that's different. And I'm a believer in God, the creator. I was created. Now I have this great gift to create. And if you're going to replace me with something else that then can create, man, I take umbrage with that. So it's really hard to stomach and swallow what is being done to creatives. I have people I love in the voiceover industry I've worked with for years, and they're out of a job because their job is outsourced to AI. Or I'm out of a job with them because their superiors have said, Aaron is great. He's a wonderful voiceover artist, but we can save so much money by just using Speech-a-lo. And, that relationship is severed forever. Really sad.
And how, as an industry, I mean, what kind of things are people looking at to replace that? You're obviously going in more into your writing, but what other kinds of directions, I guess, are people in that industry going in if their work's declining?
I don't know. I mean, to each his own, really. People are going to find a way to adapt or die, adapt and overcome. I have no intention of dying. I have every intention of overcoming. And I absolutely love creating stories. I am by nature a storyteller. So I've absolutely loved every single minute of the success and massive success that I've enjoyed with voiceovers. But honestly, it really doesn't hold a candle to, if I look over on the left half of my monitor here, I've got a beautiful ultra wide monitor that I love. But on this half is volume 2 of my new series. And I've got 130 pages and I'm at a compelling action spot right now. And I'm creating that. And I love that. And I love holding the finished product in my hand of a book that I wrote, that I produced, and now I'm holding it and people can enjoy it. Nothing can touch that for me. So, yeah, I mean, people will find the direction that they're inclined to go. For me, it was authoring again.
We were talking offline before we started recording just about the next few years or even decades, but it seems to be, that time period is coming quicker and becoming shorter, about the potential of whole industries or whole professions or whole sectors of society that really react to AI and the introduction of AI and how companies bring AI in to how they connect with customers. Do you think we may see a real yearning for human creators, for human connection, for human service in a way that may actually create some opportunities for people who right now can't necessarily see a way through this, but where people are actually really craving real humans?
Let me turn the table for a second and ask, how many times when you call someone and you are trapped in phone jail, does that result in happiness, or contentment? Yeah, it's the same thing as I just want to talk to a human being.
Hmm.
And it's so frustrating to be trapped in that system and, you're circling this drain of, you're eventually going to get kicked off the voicemail system, or you're going to be transferred around and that's the wrong number and you have 5 different numbers. My wife had to go through that just yesterday, dealing with something for her mother. I think people crave it now. What's comforting in the voiceover industry in particular, and people say that this is true of authoring. I haven't read any AI created works, from in the authoring industry, but because I don't want to. I mean, I just don't want to. People will post excerpts in authoring groups, and usually you can't tell the difference. Although some people have been able to say they've picked up on subtle differences, but with authoring in particular,
The word delve. You can never, ever, ever use the word delve or the ever evolving AI landscape in
yeah,
anything ever again.
you can't. Well, what is that quote from Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park? Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Yeah.
I love that line, and that so resonates for AI with me. With voiceovers in particular, you can always tell, at least I can as a voiceover artist, and people tell me they can, you know, outside of the voiceover sphere. If you're listening to something that is synthetic, you can usually tell. TikTok is replete with corny, cringeworthy narration. The stress and the emphasis is on the wrong syllables. Names are mispronounced. Felipe should be Felipe, or whatever. And the hairs stand up on your neck. Your head tilts and what? What did he say? We can always tell. We're not that dumb. They are getting smarter. The voices are getting better. But yeah, it just makes you crave human interaction all the more. I just want have a human tell me this, please.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of creatives say to me, you can tell whether something's created by a human or whether it's created synthetically. And I had a very interesting, I did a bit of an experiment. One of our legacy clients, we manage their global meditation community on Facebook. And we often share poetry in there because poetry speaks really deeply to people and people would share their reflections on that. And in the early days of AI or after ChatGPT, I created a poem about a person's world crumbling and meditation being a part of the rebuilding process. And I posted it just as author unknown into this community. And people were like, that speaks to me so deeply and that resonates and that's so beautiful. And, all the usual responses. And then I said, how would you feel if you knew that that was generated by AI? And everyone was like, oh, I feel deep, dirty and cheap and now it means nothing. And it's like, isn't that interesting around the meaning that we give something when we think it's human and then the meaning that we give it when it's not? And I think it's not black and white. There's so many shades in there of human emotion and connection, how we feel about that. But I think that as an example is going to be played out over and over again in every aspect of our lives as we go through this transition.
Yeah, I think the feeling is it's a combination of betrayal and alarm.
Mm.
And sometimes the pendulum swings.
And I didn't do that deliberately. I was just legitimately interested in
Sure.
how that would be received.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah.
it was a litmus test. I don't know where this was done. I remember reading a news article, I think it was last year, where a photographer entered a photo into a contest for, a best photo contest. And I think it was international, if I remember right. He won. His photo won. And then he amazed everyone and surprised everyone by saying, I wanted to see if this could be done. This photo is AI. He confessed, he renounced, he said, I can't accept this prize. But he wanted to test, and everyone was fooled by this. What I get so frustrated over every single day is, I just wish Facebook would just change, but all of these ads were just swamped with ads. And now I see, they call it fake news and whatever. Not that I don't even want to go there. That's the political realm. Never mind. You see all this stuff posted on Facebook from these, totally legitimate looking pages that are just garbage. It's a preview of a movie with Matt Damon and Tom Cruise set for 2025. There is no movie between them. And if you just have to look close and look at the faces, and they're wrong. AI can never get fingers right. Midjourney or whatever they're using can never get the fingers right. And it's just those guys wouldn't appear in a movie together. They wouldn't appear in a movie together. So and you're just inundated by it. It's so irritating.
And the challenge is there's so many shades of grey in that, right? Because you look at the photography example, there is, and I will confess that I teach people how to do an AI photo shoot. So you can train the model on 30 images of yourself. And this isn't just the professional headshot, but this is put yourself in any scene anywhere in the world. And sure, 4 times out of 10, the fingers aren't right, but it does get it right sometimes. But there's that end, which is purely 100% AI generated. But for decades, we've had tools like Photoshop where photographers have been able to edit and morph and change their imagery. And so it's really a sliding scale, I think, around, because there's purely AI generated, there's created and then AI edited or enhanced. And I think, again, across every industry, across every aspect of our lives, we're going to have these spectrums where we've got to decide where we sit in that level of comfort. I'm interested, especially given that you have voice activated technology in your home or in your office. How do you, where's the hard line for you on I won't ever use that, or I am open to using it in certain parts of my life? Do you have a
Sure.
spectrum on that?
Yeah, I mean that isn't the same ethical dilemma for me. What we're using Alexa for is, oh, she heard me. Never mind. What we're using her for, she's still listening to all this, is basically instruction. Like, for example, we can say at the end of the evening, Alexa, and I don't want to say it actually, Alexa, never mind. There we go. Okay, good. So we say Alexa, shut down. And I have a sequence in the Alexa app which will drop our thermostat. It'll lock all the doors. It'll turn off the lights. It'll arm the security system. And all of that is done with just a single command. My kids use it to play music. We do it to set timers for cooking or for the kids, having a reading time or whatever, or using their iPad time so they're not, staring at a screen all day. We use it judiciously. There are informational purposes that we'll use it for, but it is never used to create. This is purely, Alexa, what's the weather today? It is simply informational that way. And I realize that this is an AI tool, is an artificial intelligence tool, but this is where I draw the line, is when you are a creator and you are using something, this is where it just burns me up. People can give Chat GPT or OpenAI a few prompts, tell me a story, whatever, give me details about this and that. Get this whole story, copy and paste, you put it in a document, you format the document, then you go to Midjourney, you create your covers, you slap everything all together, you throw it up online on Kindle Direct Publishing, and boom, you're a capitalist. You're not a creator, you're a capitalist. And then you're going to put your name on it and say that you created that. Well, all of that AI created stuff that you just posted and you're taking credit for was trained on the creations of so many legitimate humans. And you are standing on the shoulders of giants and riding on their coattails saying, that's yours? The audacity blows me away. It just blows me away.
So how do we address that? I mean, that's because that hits me hard when you explain, when you say it in such a pointed way. I think a lot of people talk about that. They talk around the edges of that. But if you go right into the heart of that, how do you deal with that? Is it how the AI is trained? Is it about the data that it's trained on and acknowledging the source of that data? What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on how we address that absolute inequity that's already happening?
Yeah,
Legislation.
legislation. So, and there are rumblings, there are things that have happened. As a voiceover artist, I am privy to one of my colleagues. Her name is Bev, and she actually did a project for I believe it was the Chinese Institute of Acoustics in 2020 or 2021. Without her knowledge or consent, all those recordings were given over to TikTok. So TikTok had all of her recordings. It was a TTS project, all of her recordings, and then they did whatever they saw fit with it without her consent or her knowledge. So people would then see reels on TikTok, and there's a voice assigned to say whatever they wanted to say, and that voice was profane. The voice was saying, dirty, gross things that Bev would never lend her voice to. And people were going, Bev, is this you? Is this your voice here? And she's going, oh my gosh, it is, and she didn't give permission. So she sued and they settled. I don't know. They settled out of court. I don't know how much for, but that is an example of, taking legal action to my voice is my product as a voiceover artist. You can't use my product without my permission if you don't have licensing for it. In the same, by the same respect, I've had my books plagiarized. People have taken literally like copy paste into another book cover, another author name who doesn't exist, thrown it online, and they're profiting from that. There was a movie out a while back that was, I think it was called Her, with Scarlett Johansson, and she was in it with Leaf Phoenix, I believe, and she was an AI voice. And if I remember right, she's suing for this right now, and she should, because the director or somebody said, "Hey, I got an idea. Can we take your voice because it was so great in this and make this artificial intelligence project?" She said, "No, no, you may not." They did it anyway. And then they had the audacity to come back and show again, "Hey, I know you were against this, but we just want you to get an idea of how cool this is. What do you think?" And they played it for her. She's, "I think I'm going to sue you."
Well,
And
she
she's
sued
suing.
OpenAI because she believed that the original voice in the OpenAI advanced voice was hers. And they were able to prove that it wasn't her voice, but it was someone who was paid to sound exactly like her and
Like
who
a
had
mimic,
trained on sounding exactly like her.
an impersonator.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think one of the things that strikes me is it's taken us a good 15 years to get a handle on the impact of social media on
Yeah.
society. And it's only just now that legislation, I mean, here in Australia, they're just bringing in legislation that children under 16 can't use social
I
media.
heard that. I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't have the luxury of 15 years with AI, and
Right.
it strikes me that our legal systems are going to be so overwhelmed with. I mean, look, just Elon Musk and Sam Altman are going to keep them busy, but so overwhelmed with these legal cases, and it's not going to be until there's precedents that some of this can start being dealt with. But it'll be really interesting to see how that side of things unfolds because the horse is already bolted in so many ways. So
Yeah.
how we kind of bring that back in and put safety guardrails and ethical frameworks around it. And there's a summit happening in Paris at the moment, and the US and the UK have refused to sign the global agreement on AI safety and ethics. And so it's going to be bumpy. I say it a lot, and I wish there was a more optimistic way of looking at it, but it's going to be bumpy for a long while to come, I imagine.
Yeah, it will be. It's really unavoidable that we're drawing nearer to an inevitable reckoning, which just sounds like such a great book, premise. But we really are drawing to an inevitable reckoning of that. But I love the fact that there are rumblings now of disapproval. As an actor, I'm a voice actor, but I'm an actor. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA. There is documentation and there's communication going around, and there are causes that people are rallying behind that are anti AI abuse. Again, there are benefits of artificial intelligence, but the impact on the creators and the creative community, you can't deny it. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And especially as I feel like a little bit more, maybe some favor in this regard as a voiceover artist, you don't see so many caricatures or imitations of actual actors being created and put out there because you can tell that's not them. It's clearly not them. Video is harder to produce with a an AI created being, but
At the
audio,
moment.
yeah, audio is so much more deceptive and believable. We have a text thread on iMessage with our parents who are getting up there in age, and said, you just need to know my recordings are floating all around the cyberspace. They're out there. It's quite possible. I'm not, James Earl Jones. I'm not Don LaFontaine, but I've been doing this for years. So if you ever get a call from me that says I'm in duress and I need you to wire me money, that is not me. I need you to verify that with me personally on this phone. You have to educate people and say, it's probably not me.
Well, we have a family password, so I've always had that with my children. If someone comes
Yeah,
and tries to pick you up and says, "Mummy's been in an accident, come with me," if they don't know
right.
the family password, you don't go with them. But I've now trained the rest of my family, all the adults in the family, for the
Yeah,
same reason. I have a huge amount of content out there, and it's not hard for my voice or my likeness to be cloned. So we have a family password that if
so
you
wise.
yeah, if you don't know it. And the other thing, as you're talking, my mother, and it doesn't matter who she is, but she's quite high profile in the work that she does and has been in the media for many years and has an organization that is very based on her brand. And we had a conversation recently. She was just going to, in her will, hand over the copyright and the audio recorder, all of her works to the charity that she's created. And I said to her, this isn't about us controlling that or having any kind of monetary benefit from that. However, with technology, and given the work I do, with technology, the way that it is, can you make it that your family gets to decide whether they create a hologram of you? I said, you know
Yeah.
the board right now, but once
Yeah.
you're gone, that entity could morph into anything. And you don't know who those humans are going to be that are going to be running that organization with your
Absolutely.
name as the front of it. I said, please, can we address legally some kind of way that we've got a say in whether you're turned into a hologram, whether they can create versions of your voice beyond, I think they're all really tough conversations to have. Everybody needs, particularly in the creative field, needs to be having those conversations.
Yeah. So necessary.
And the
You're
lawyer kind
leaving.
of scratched their head and went, oh, I'm not quite sure how to address that.
It's so necessary. It's called a legacy. You're leaving a legacy and a breadcrumb trail behind you of all these things that you've created that can easily be snatched up by someone else and take credit for those, or use
Mm.
those artifacts that you leave behind in order to manipulate someone else for a sinister gain. We do a kid code as well in our family. Our kid code is, oh, I can't say it.
No,
And
don't say it.
we do it in order for the very same reason. It's a kid code that if anyone else tries to come pick up our kids or put them in their van or whatever, they know how that works. I'm pretty sure I used the same code for family in that thread where I'm saying anybody asks you for money, it's not me, and here's the code. Those things are so good. I think one of the wisest things that, for example, Facebook ever did was, or I'm sorry, not, well, Facebook does it too, but Apple, excuse me, did was to establish a legacy contact. So, and it's wise if you've got all of your digital memories and your digital footprint scattered over all these years of things that maybe are only there anymore. Maybe they took a picture and put it there and it's the one picture that you'll cherish and they didn't save it elsewhere. You want access to that. That's not for a nefarious purpose. That's safeguarding, which is very different. Yeah, it's such a dangerous line to tread. I think we all have to
It
toe the
is.
line of keeping wisdom at the front and center.
Yeah, and I think, the human traits of intuition and wisdom and experience are things that we really want to make sure that we keep. And people now more than ever need to be tuning into, does this feel right? Is this real? Because I think
Yeah.
the default mechanism is distrust. And it's, we're living in a world where you just don't know whether what you're seeing is real or not. And I've been saying that for a while now, that, we're the last generation that will know that that painting was painted by a person or that that song was created by a human. And there's a lot to be sad about with that. As we start to wrap up, one of my favorite, and I share this in all my workshops at the moment, but one of my favorite clips is from the company O2, the telecommunications company in the UK. I don't know if you've seen it, but they've created an AI grandma called Daisy, and she answers scam phone calls. And on average, she keeps the scammers on the phone for up to 40 minutes. So she'll be
That's great.
saying, so that's UW, and where do I put the dot? And the recording, there are all these scammers going, you stupid old lady. And she's going,
Yeah.
that's not very nice, dear. But what they're doing is using AI to keep these scammers busy, because what they say is, well, every time Daisy keeps someone on the phone for 40 minutes, that's 40 minutes that they're not out there scamming somebody else. So
Yeah.
that's one great application of AI where you can see that it's being used for good. I'll send you the link. It's a great
I
video.
would love to see that link. That's awesome. Those are brilliant. Those are brilliant uses of people who are determined to beat the system. I've got something going on with my headset. I apologize. They're determined to beat the system. And so here's the kicker. They have come up with a creative way to do it. And they've chosen to use AI as their tool to defeat scammers. Totally fine. It's when the creator creates. That's where I have a problem with. But that is brilliant. That's brilliant
Well, and
usage
I
of technology.
I think on that point, for me, it's, you were talking about where's that line, and when AI is used to be more productive, to enhance, to make our lives simpler and better, and it serves us, that's a really good application of AI. But when it's being used to replace human traits and qualities, that's where it starts to become very messy.
Or to mimic humans themselves, and you really can't tell the difference. There's no reason for that. There's no viable beneficial purpose for that. It just creates tomfoolery. It just creates confusion, and people can't. When you talked earlier about we're living in the most distrustful time ever. What can you trust anymore if you can't trust what you see?
But these companies are spending trillions of dollars with that end game in mind, is technology that totally mimics and surpasses human capability.
Yeah.
And that's the world that we're heading into. And that's why I'm very passionate about these kind of conversations, so that we keep bringing ethics, responsible use of AI to the forefront, and really focusing on how are we going to transition through this time. Transition's a loaded word, but how are we going to navigate this time as humans together? And I said to you offline, there's a ton of tech evangelists, a lot of them Silicon Valley tech marketing bros, who are just evangelizing technology and say, get on board or die. And there's just no regard, I guess, for how people are going to go along on that journey. And then you've got
Yeah.
all the things like, are we going to end up with universal basic income that supports people that lose their whole livelihoods? And I think that's a whole nother podcast interview.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
So,
I want to solve
Aaron,
every single issue right now.
yeah, that's right. Oh, we always end these episodes with more questions than answers.
I know. Hey, that's okay.
So, Aaron, as we do wrap up, I do always ask people, as you stand on the hill and you look out for the next 12 to 18 months, what are you excited about, or what do you see coming? We've explored a lot of the challenges, but is there a side to this where there is some optimism for you about what's coming with the technology?
What I'm excited about is books and writing. And I was going to say, if I can pitch authoraaronryan.com, go there and you'll find a guy who's excited about writing, because I make stuff up. Here we go. I love writing and love creating, and that is what I'm going to be excited about in 15 years. And still be doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm old-fashioned. I still use Microsoft Money to balance my checkbook. I still use, on occasion, Microsoft PhotoDraw. Both phased out around 1995 or 2000. I'm a dinosaur, but I use modern stuff too. I think what I'm excited about with regards to AI is what we talked about earlier, and just legislation to make sure that it is used responsibly. The internet itself is a tool that can be used for tremendous destruction and harm, but it's also a tool that can be used wisely, responsibly, and healthily. We've got an 8 and a 5. I'm sorry. He just turned 9 yesterday. I got to train my voice to. I need to train my voice. I need to train my mind to say it correctly. He is right here. No, right there. And there's my 5-year-old. And I got the 5-year-old one. He's not 6 till June. I want those kids to go out into the wild west of the internet fully equipped to be responsible, to be safe. There's horror stories of what happens out there on the internet to kids. And I want my kids safe. I want them to grow up in a safe community locally and webually. Anyway, internetally. I want them to be safe. So, yeah, it's just, we all need to be responsible with the tools that we've been given.
Absolutely. And with 9 and 11-year-old children myself that have only just turned 9 and 11 and that I still get wrong, I think every parent is very concerned and thinking about the world that they're growing into at the moment. So I'm just always heartened at the end of these conversations that there are good people who are standing up for what's important in this time of such change. And we will share all of your links, Aaron, and for people who now want to go read your books, and I'm sure there are many, authoraaronryan.com, did you say? Authoraaronryan.com.
AuthorAaronRyan.com.
Excellent. Well, please go check out Aaron's books, and thank you so much for being with me on the podcast today. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the AI Grapple. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out with any questions or comments about the show. Until next time, keep grappling with AI and stay curious.